Hi, everybody, and welcome back to yet another cracking edition of the Map Round Show. This is the Built in California series where I'm connecting you to some incredible founders doing amazing things in the world of business. With me on the line is the founder and CEO of Vimaan. Vimaan.ai is the website if you're interested in it. His name is KG Ganapathi. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Matt. Nice to be here.
No, privilege is all mine. So I would love it if you would kick us off. So you've got a very interesting, diverse background, not only from a technology, but also an entrepreneurial perspective. So I'd love for you just to paint a picture for our audience around the world, if you would, KG, around what your background is. Give us the elevator pitch. Kick us off for today.
Happy to, Matt. So I, have a background, pretty deep technical background. I have a PhD in material science and been in the industry now, technology industry now for probably close to 30 years. And I've been in large companies, I've been in small companies, and once I got into the startup world, I got really excited about, how much excitement it had compared to some of the big companies, and I got drawn into it, and I've been an entrepreneur ever since for the last 20 years or so, thoroughly enjoying it. And this is my fourth startup, so it's been a blast.
Yeah, so you've actually you've joined the Exit Club a few times, which is super exciting, and I'm going to definitely come back to that for everyone. But I want to stick with Vimaan for now, because I think what you're doing is really, really interesting, and it has a very interesting origin story. Started in the drone, from a drone context, but then became something else. So I'd love for you just to unpack for us. Give us the elevator pitch about Vimaan. What is the business about?
Yeah, as you said, it started off as a drone, and in fact, the name has its roots in, Sanskrit word Viman. In Sanskrit, the word Viman means a heavenly chariot. So we started as a drone company, attempting to sell hardware for applications in industrial automation. And what started in, as a hardware play grew into something much more than that, because our customers were asking for solutions, not just subsystems that would enable a solution. So we grew into becoming a computer vision and a software enabled solution for the customer. And in addition to that, then they saw the computer vision capabilities and the sensing capabilities that we had, and started to ask us if we could deploy those solutions across the warehouse to solve other problems they had, not just in their storage, but also in their incoming and outgoing and material movement. And so we grew with that customer demand, and became an end-to-end, wall-to-wall warehouse solution that delivers full service data all the way from hardware through computer vision through software integration. So the company is actually morphed. I don't know if the word pivot is appropriate, because we still hold on to our roots of being a drone company, but at the same time, we've grown quite dramatically and significantly since then.
So, KG, what's the problem here? I mean, it's interesting to be talking to you about technology in warehouses, because it seems to me like, if I think about Amazon, what I see in my mind is stuff I've seen on YouTube, where it's just like massive automation, super mature, lots of sophisticated supply chain. I mean, there's an endless supply of Amazon boxes arriving at my house every day. But actually, the reality is something quite different. Amazon being probably the not the rule, not the general status quo. So, what is the problem from your perspective, KG, that Vimaan solves for warehouses in the US and around the world?
That's a really interesting question. If you even look at Amazon, and Amazon is an investor in our company, and we obviously have great respect for what they've accomplished in the supply chain and the kind of leader they've built themselves into. But if you look at all the automation that they've done, and if you look at the entire world of robotics and automation as it applies to the warehousing industry or the logistics or the supply chain industry, almost universally, what you'll find is that they are attempting to move material from one place to another. And that's where they're trying to build all of that efficiency those productivity gains, those improvements in timing and cost and response times and things like that. What we do is we sit separately from this entire ecosystem of players that are actually moving material. We focus on observing the material and ensuring the visibility and the accuracy of and the traceability of material that's being moved, and therefore enabling a whole new degree of improvements that is a derivative of this accuracy. And so if you recognize the fact that a robot is only as good as the information it provides you. If you send a robot to a location and ask it to pick up an item and bring it back, it's going to go to that location. But if it doesn't know whether or not that item is in that location, then you're never sure whether it's going to find what it needs to find or not. And so when it goes there and it doesn't find that item, then the robot is lost. So what we provide is that additional layer of vision and visibility from anywhere and in a more or less real-time manner that ensures that even in a fully lights out robotics driven automated facility, you have that visibility, you have that traceability, and you have that accuracy of material and the location of that material in order to be able to operate your facilities efficiently.
So, KG, curious to get your view here, but how bad is the problem? Like, in other words, if you look at a typical warehouse and you're talking about the problem of inventory accuracy, how bad is it in reality?
So it varies. It depends on how much of an investment and an expense the warehouse operator is willing to incur in order to generate accuracy. And maybe I'll give you some examples. If you, for example, spend a lot of labor and material and time in tracking material and verifying that the locations of materials and the movements of materials are accurate, then you're probably going to have good enough accuracy, except that you're now spending a lot of money to achieve that level of accuracy. Conversely, if you do not make those investments and incur those expenses, you're going to be stuck with, yes, you'll save money on the labor and the equipment, but you're stuck with a lower degree of accuracy. And that has its own impacts or implications in terms of the costs you incur, right? If you don't have accurate inventory of items, and you're trying to pick items every single day to fulfill orders and fulfill orders, then you're going to be spending a lot of time of your associates looking for material because you just don't have the accuracy. And when you send them to a certain location, you only have a certain probability that they'll find it there. Otherwise, they're going to be looking for it, which then results in delayed processing times, delivery times, and there's an impact there. There could be much, much more painful impacts. You could stop entire production lines because you cannot find the right material at the right time. You may fall out of regulatory compliance because you're not able to track and trace your material. And this happens in medical devices. It happens with chemicals that are regulated. So we find that there are various grades of impact when you lose accuracy. And so the problem could be very, very bad. At the same time, of course, if you want to maintain high accuracy, then you have to incur the costs associated with maintaining that accuracy. That is the trade-off we avoid the customer, from having to make. We provide extremely high accuracy without having to incur that cost, and therefore provide them the benefit on both ends.
So is this a labor cost issue? Because I'm imagining in my mind that, if in a warehouse that doesn't have systems like Vimaan's, where there's a lot of manual, processes happening, people don't know where what is, and it's coming in from different sides of the warehouse, and it's confusing. It results in a lot of, repetitive manual tasks. This can, in some cases, I'm imagining, KG, indicate that warehouses would have a very high attrition rates for labor. However, having said that, of course, if you're able to automate things in a precise way, you're able to create probably a warehouse experience that doesn't result in massive labor, attrition, if you like. So how much of a role does this solution that you guys have built play into the context of workforce cost and management?
Workforce and labor related savings are only one dimension of our solution. We provide an ROI to our customers, obviously based on the labor alone. But it's really important to emphasize that our solution provides a whole range of benefits that go outside of labor. I'll give you, a few examples, right? Because maintaining accuracy and maintaining good visibility to your inventory is sometimes just not even possible, no matter how much labor you throw at it. For example, if you look at a food and beverage sector, and they have expiry dates on them. These expiry dates are not even contained in the barcodes that the barcode scanners are used to scan. And so these are not even part of your database or your warehouse management system. And so it doesn't even know which items in the facility are expiring on which dates. So it might ask you to pick the wrong item that is expiring, at a much later date, over picking an item that is expiring, very shortly. And so you're actually ending up wasting material because you're going to throw it away when it expires. That's one example. We can actually track what the expiry date is. Similarly, when it comes to, I'll give you an example of the defense sector. We have people who are customers in the defense sector who actually sometimes have quality escapes, and they end up violating ITAR regulations by shipping items to the wrong countries to prohibited countries. And so we can actually eliminate or mitigate those kinds of problems by looking at labels, shipping labels as they go out the door, verify the accuracy and the traceability of that material, highlight errors, catch them before they happen, and again, prevent these kinds of very, very costly mistakes that go way beyond just labor cost benefits or a simple accuracy metric. We can end up sometimes saving you from shipping the wrong item to your customer and then having it all come back from a reverse logistics standpoint. And oftentimes, if it's food and beverage, it has to be destroyed. So you end up losing material. So there are significant benefits that you have that go beyond just the labor saving.
Mm-hmm. And so how accurate is it in the end? Like and how short is the time to value? Because obviously I think this is about the customer experience in many cases, making sure that we protect our margins as an e-commerce business, and we're able to facilitate from start to finish a supply chain or a warehouse management process that is conduit to the ambitions that we set, for ourselves as companies. So how accurate is it? Like if you're working with robotics and things like this, like to what level of degree is it precise and accurate?
That's also a really interesting question. We actually claim, and I'll tell you how we do this, but we tell customers that we enable 100% accuracy. And that's a very important distinction from we are 100% accurate, because we recognize that no system is 100% accurate, right? So what we do is we intentionally bias our systems, our computer vision and machine learning systems, to err a little bit on the side of a false negative, meaning we will tell you that there is a problem a very rare percentage of the time beyond when there is a problem, so that we can then send an associate to look at or verify what we have flagged as an issue, and they can ensure that, okay, this is not a problem, that's okay, we can go ahead and send it. But what that ensures for them is that every time there is a problem, we will catch it. Sometimes the price for that is that sometimes, maybe 2-3% of the time, even if there is not a problem, we will flag it, but they can easily disambiguate and resolve and reconcile that problem, which results in 100% accuracy. So for us, that kind of accuracy, when we end up looking at the labor savings, the quality savings, and the ability to even save you inventory, we don't even measure ROI in years. We measure it in months. And so this leads to a very interesting metric, right? Because we don't cost our customers an investment. We don't ask them to make capital expenditures. This is an operating expense because it's a subscription model. And therefore, there's not even an issue of budget because a budget has already been allocated for that year to accomplish this function. And so if you're going to end up spending less than your budget because our ROIs are less than 1 year, therefore you can spend less than your annual budget, accomplish the same results, and then get a whole lot more benefits. That's what our customers find attractive about this, that they don't have to wait for new budget cycles. They don't have to go wait for long, investment approval cycles and so on.
Mm-hmm. And so I'm very curious, one of the things Craig was telling me when I first got introduced to what you guys were doing, he was making the point about scan guns being slow and laborious from an accuracy perspective. And so if the idea is to provide the truth of what's actually on the shelves, then I'm curious to get your view from a technology perspective. How much of a difference is computer vision tracking and inspection versus, say, like the scan gun? Like, how much of a departure is that from the way things have been done to the way things should be done in the future?
Oh, it's a night and day difference. It's a massive paradigm shift because if you think about what a scan gun does, it reads a barcode. And the barcode is a representation of, an entire inventory item. It could be something as big as a pallet that is, millions of dollars worth, or it could be a roll of tissue paper. Both of them are represented by a single barcode. And so what we change is that paradigm of representing an item by what it really is. We'll tell you what the item is, we'll tell you how big it is, we'll tell you what the dimensions are, we'll tell you what else is on that label, whether it's expiring soon or not, where it's manufactured if you need to, we'll tell you what the serial number is, which again, as I said, is important in defense and pharmaceutical industries. We'll tell you, again, what the expiry date is. We can tell you whether it's damaged or not. And so having those levels of dimensionality in the visibility of an item, you can imagine gives you so much more clarity as to what that item is. And therefore, with that extra added information available, you can obviously make a lot more rich decisions and therefore generate much greater ROIs.
Mm-hmm. So a question for me around robotics. How much, like I had Lucas Pankar on the show. He's the CEO of a company. He used to work at Tesla and did like the technology design and engineering for the auto self-driving car technology within the Tesla. And he's now got into like the retail, the manufacturing category and introducing technology to help them produce things better, faster, cheaper, etc. And we were talking about, if you think about the production line of a car, like the prevailing idea or the mental image is a whole bunch of robots, everything being automated from start to finish. So I'm curious to get your view, KG. Are we going to automate everything at some point? Like, to what extent do you feel like warehouses are going to use robotics technology or computer vision or drones and so on and so forth to automate the end-to-end warehouse management process?
Well, I don't know that everything will be automated. There is there are a tremendous number of activities that still require human beings and what human beings can do versus what robots can do. But what we view our value add as is being able to do the things that humans, either cannot do or should not be doing in terms of safety, right? If you look at sometimes these warehouses that are, that have racks that are 30, 40 feet high, imagine going up on, lift trucks to go do inventory counting or verification. There is an inherent safety issue associated with those kinds of problems. And I gave you a few examples of how we use computer vision to capture data in an automated way. And when you start looking at millions of items that enter and exit a warehouse, it is simply not possible for humans to track every single item. That's the kind of benefit we provide that avoids, reverse logistics costs and so on. going back to your original question about how much of the warehouse will be automated, I think it comes down to, if you have very high quality and high accuracy visibility into the warehouse, and if you have certain robots that can eliminate repetitive functions, those are the ones that are more primed for automation and are more primed to allow humans to move up the sort of skills ladder and perform functions that are higher in skill and less repetitive and less rote, and therefore less likely to cause injuries and so on.
Mm-hmm. So you touched on upfront, KG, that Amazon is a partner of yours or has invested in Vimaan. Obviously, we all know the the word Amazon, but I'm curious to paint a picture for other founders and an audience around the world on the nature of this type of deal. Because personally, for me, I didn't even know Amazon was investing in high growth startups, given the fact, again, the prevailing idea is that like they're super innovative on their own. Like it's I'm curious, like why did that happen and how did that come about?
So Amazon reached out to us about a little under a year ago, and we had some of the same questions you had, to be perfectly honest. Amazon is obviously a huge company. They're a leader in the supply chain space. They're a leader in innovation. They do have a reputation of doing a lot of internal development and driving innovation internally. But the more I talked to them about, they had started this new fund. It's called the Industrial Innovation Fund. And there was a genuine desire to see and to seed an ecosystem that they could benefit from and that the industry could benefit from. And I was convinced, the more I talked to them, that this could be a very powerful partnership for us, certainly knowing Amazon's scale and breadth. That we could learn a lot from and benefit a lot from a company like that. And I'm pleased to say that I cannot speak about the details of the investment or the details of any engagements we have with Amazon, but we I think all our expectations have come true. They've been a great partner, they've been a great investor, and a great sounding board for a lot of the things that we see as we grow, as we try to grow. We've had a great relationship across the company with them, and so it's all around has been a very healthy experience for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was just showing some warehouse technology of Amazon up on the screen for everyone. Like crazy, man! Like all just robots. Like,
And that's an interesting point, right? Even if you look at not just the work that Amazon has done internally with the Kiva robots and the Kiva acquisition that they did, maybe 10 years ago, along with the investments they've announced as part of this Industrial Innovation Fund, I think a vast majority of these investments that they made were towards that paradigm I described very early in this interview, which was moving items from point A to point B. They're looking at futuristic, robotics companies that assist in movement of items, prevent repetitive tasks, improve safety. We are, I think, out of that initial cohort of companies that they invested in, we are the only company that provides this kind of vision and computer vision as a solution to the warehouse. Now, you may obviously be aware that Amazon does a tremendous amount of internal work on computer vision and machine learning and the kinds of things that we are doing. But this was an endorsement for us that despite all of that internal innovation, they felt that this was a company worthy of investing in, because to us, what it said was that what we're doing has value, and what we're doing is something that they do not have and potentially could see value in. So that's how we viewed the investment, as really an endorsement of what we do, and the fact that we are quite unique in this industry from the standpoint of robotics and inventory accuracy.
it's a huge endorsement. It's still on the face value. It's like, why? I still have that like why. I don't like it's interesting to know that they're actually facilitating this ecosystem relationship with startups, because I do think like even though if you're a mature company with incredible technology, like you don't know it all. And I think if you're really going to be a startup, at scale, because that's really, about continual improvement as markets move, supply chain innovations, new technologies get introduced, etc. I think as a mature company, you want to have that insurance policy, right? You want to have that relationship with the startup ecosystem to ensure that you do remain relevant, because markets, as we all know, change.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that's the motivation with which they started the fund. And everything we've seen to date has indicated that they are standing behind that vision, and they're following through on that vision, and really trying to help these startups grow and thrive. So we welcome that engagement and involvement with them.
Mm-hmm. KG, we all know the markets, lots of question marks rather around the current economy. You guys have raised a significant amount of capital, not only from Amazon and so forth, but there's a lot of startup founders, like they're always in a raise. If it's not today, it's going to be the next quarter. And yet I think the last stat that I saw was like the total amount of venture capital being put into startups over the last 12 months year-on-year comparison has come down by 34%. That's according to PitchBook. Yet the need for capital is still there. It's not going away at any time soon. So I'm curious to maybe to have a discussion with you around advice for startups looking to raise money in the current market. We recognize that they're being more selective. You got Series B, C, D in venture funds coming earlier in the investment life cycle, typically seed, Series A. It's all changing, and so amongst this backdrop, what's your advice or insights into raising capital with the market the way that it is right now? What's your advice to a fellow founder?
Yeah, it's advice that we're trying to follow ourselves, and every company, including ourselves, is always raising, right? So there's no such thing as we don't need any money. But yes, it's a tough environment. There's no denying it. I think it's more than just tough. It's the uncertainty that I think most founders and small companies should be wary of. Nobody knows really when this market's going to turn around. Is it going to be 2023 or is it going to be 2024? And so having dry powder for an extended period of time is always a really wise pursuit. And like everyone else, we're trying to follow those same that same advice and make sure that we are able to last through this downturn. We're doing very well. We're excited about the place we are and the opportunities we have and the growth we're experiencing. But that doesn't mean we're immune to the challenges of the market, because it's a macro economic situation that impacts everybody. The tide is down right now, and so we have to be aware of that. We have to adjust accordingly, and the advice I would give myself and everyone else, and I'm talking to our own staff and our team about, is we got to weather this storm and make sure that we last through the uncertain period, which could be as much as 18 to 24 months.
Mm-hmm. How attached to valuation should you be at this point? Do you just say no because the valuations aren't nowhere near where they were like a year ago, as an example?
I will bring 20 years of experience to answering that question. It's not a question that is influenced by the last 1 or 2 years or 3 years of market activity. Valuations are always lower on my list of priorities for an entrepreneur. I think it is far more important to get the right partners, far more important to build a good business, to build a great team. Valuations will automatically get decided by the market. And there are situations where you can be overvalued and then you'll pay the price. There are situations where maybe you'll ride the wave and you'll get lucky and you'll go public at great valuations. And sooner or later, these things correct themselves. And so I have honestly never worried that much about valuations at a private stage. I think there are far more important terms in a term sheet to worry about, and it has to be taken as a package. I'm not saying they're not important. I'm just saying that they should not be looked at in isolation as the sole metric that defines the importance of a term sheet.
Yeah, terms before amounts. Like that was, I've sold a couple companies and I always look for terms. So I'm not like, so I'm the type of entrepreneur that'll see a gap in the market, commercialize the gap, build you a house, but I'm not the skyscraper guy. Like I don't care about like venture capitalists and like having to be accountable to all of them and have that pressure. I think it's hard enough as it is just to build a business, period. And when I started getting into the exit process, I was always like, I always knew that, you know, to your point, like you've done this many times, right? This isn't your first rodeo rather. You're not like a one-hit wonder. There are some entrepreneurs who are like a one-hit wonder, but then there are others who just are like serial, like they just keep founding companies. If one fails today, they'll start another one tomorrow. And so they're that type of mindset. And so if you're in that mindset and you're selling a business, like, you know, to squibble or squabble in your mind over like $1 million, say, yes, it's a lot of money at a certain point in time. I'm using that number as purely for reference purposes, but like you get so caught up in the valuation, right? It's like, oh, and like the amount of deals that I've had founders like fall through late stage, they've gone through due diligence and that never actually complete because the founder's like, no, I'm worth more. You know what I mean? Like to your point, the market will always correct.
Correct.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
I've always felt that there's an inherent fairness built into the marketplace. And so the market will, and so will venture capitalists. I also, you know, if they don't, they know they're, if you have the right venture capital partners, they understand the importance of incentivizing a founding team and a management team and an employee team. And there's always fairness, and that's why they are so successful, and that they are able to sustain their funds from, you know, one cycle to another. And so if you have the right partners, this is generally not a problem.
KG, you've had multiple exits, so I said up front we'd come back to this. So here we are. Well done, everyone, for sticking around. But I'm curious to ask you this. I'm very interested in timing. How important was timing in your ability to scale and exit those companies that you did exit from? And the reason why I asked that is because this keeps coming up, like the thing around like markets mature, like we keep talking about markets moving. Now it's a recession, then it was COVID, blah, blah, blah. So like things are always changing. And so as these things change, timing becomes very important. Like if you're too early, like you can't scale. If you're too late, you miss the opportunity to become the king or the predominant market share leader. In your experience, KG, how important is timing when it comes to the ability to scale and exit a startup or business?
It's hugely important, hugely important. You know, there are so many startups that come to the party late, and that obviously can be a death knell. Not always, but it can be. Coming in early is equally difficult. You know, coming in early, being ahead of the marketplace, and then having to wait and survive until the market is ready for you. That's a problem that many companies have when it comes to a market creation exercise. And to some extent, we are like that. We are creating a market. We therefore have to evangelize with customers, tell them the value of the solution, have them overcome their questions and the inertia of doing things the status quo, the legacy way, having uh, have them turn their business in a different direction to leverage the technology capabilities we have. That takes time. And so it's very easy to start drinking your own Kool-Aid and saying, yes, this market's taking off. Let's start expanding. Let's grow the sales staff. Let's grow the team. And because, you know, we're starting to see the first few sales drop in. But, you know, it's a painful exercise until you reach that kind of critical mass. And oftentimes I see entrepreneurs make that mistake of ramping up too early because they think that they're ready, while in reality, they really aren't. And the market isn't. More than maybe they're ready, but the market isn't. So having that ability to read the timing of the marketplace and its readiness, that's important. Being late is, that's, I don't have to talk much about that. That's equally important. Um, but there's also a timing factor when it comes to making choices about your exit. If you look at a market or an economy, an economic situation, a macroeconomic situation, and this is a prime example now, there are companies that probably are better off exiting quickly because the market's taken a downturn. Maybe they're not ready for their rounds of funding. It's better to make an exit. And this is actually something I did in one of my previous companies. The market was not in a great place. We decided to exit. Because we saw some headwinds in terms of whether or not we'll be able to raise funds, and we sold the company to Qualcomm. So timing factors in many places, whether it's ramping up the business to accommodate an apparent market need, or whether it's making decisions about an exit. All of these are critical factors in terms of that determine a company's success.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And I'm curious to maybe stick with this exiting discussion for a moment, and the timing thing. So one of the things I learned with my last exit was to an Australian recruitment firm, had a data intelligence company, and that was back in February. And then I had a company that died. I had to liquidate it, but the context was I had tried to sell it for over a year. And eventually, because I emigrated to the States, and it was just at a size where it needed me in it every day, and then to take your eye off the prize, and then no one's going to run your business like you. And so the lesson that I learned, which I'd love to share and maybe get your view on, is that I wish I had started thinking about the exit earlier. So we were doubling revenues every year, and the story was good. We won Africa's Best Tech Startup Award. We were just like, we had go-to-market fit, problem market fit, like the whole thing was all there, and we were scaling. And then COVID happened. And I remember a distinct point where I spoke to my mentor. He owns hundreds of businesses. And I said to him, and this was like 2-3 years before COVID even. And I said to him, listen, I've got my green card for the States, got it through the show. What do you think I should do? And he said, sell. And I'm like, I'm not selling. Well, you're crazy. It's the worst advice I ever heard. Things are great. I got champagne problems. I'm saying no to business. I'm not, you know what I mean? Like, I've got too much opportunity here. And I wish I'd listened to him and started not drinking my Kool-Aid as much, and actually started to think about maybe I should. Maybe I should just have the conversations now, like with the broker, and just see where it goes. But I didn't. I was too arrogant at the time, because there was no reason for me to believe that a pandemic was around the corner. You know what I mean? And so the question I have for you, KG, is when should you start thinking about an exit? Is it from day one? Is it once you reach a certain revenue? What's your advice there?
That's a really difficult question, but I think I've never started a company with the intention of selling it, because to me, it feels like the wrong set of objectives, that you start a company with the intention of selling, because then you compromise on foundationally how strong the company is. You're trying to achieve a very, very specific, very narrow goal. And so you're doing things that potentially are suboptimal for a different type of an outcome that you could achieve. So for me, it has always been build a really foundationally strong company that has all of the right building blocks that could enable it to be a large public independent company. However, along the way, if you find that there are reasons and there are opportunities for you to grow the company, in a faster way than you could have done independently, or because of timing related issues where the market goes through a downturn, or for whatever reason, there could be all kinds of reasons you experience. And that's where I think the trick comes, recognizing that there is an event or a new recognition that something has changed, and maybe it's the right thing to do. But you should cultivate those relationships and be thinking about those kinds of opportunities pretty much all the time. Who would be the right types of partners? Is your objective to get to market faster? Because if you maybe ride the back of an elephant, a big company, then they can get you to market faster. Their brand can get you, their sales force can get you there quicker. Or is it that you're just trying to counter the downturn from a market standpoint? Or are you trying to do something different? You pivoted and you happen to fit perfectly within a different company's gap in their product offering and their portfolio, and together you decided that it makes more sense to do it. There's all kinds of reasons you might make a course correction during building your company and say that, okay, I think it's the right thing to do to sell, and maybe quote unquote not pursue this independent company building path. But if you don't have that option generally available, or you haven't been thinking about it, then yeah, it becomes really difficult to execute against it, because selling a company is a long sales cycle. That's a long cycle. It doesn't happen overnight, unless it's kind of a distress sale or something, which is obviously something nobody wants. But so maybe to summarize, I would say you don't want that to be the target of all your work, but it should certainly be a factor, more or less all the time as you try to build a company.
Mm-hmm. Great stuff. So I want to change gears and talk to you about vision here. So you're obviously a visionary. You know how to build and sell things and scale things and so on. And you're on a similar trajectory with Vimaan. So as a visionary, like what is the end outcome that you hope to see as a consequence of Vimaan? Like what does that look like for you as the visionary for Vimaan?
I'll rather than talk specifically about Vimaan, I will tell you where I think the opportunity lies in what we do. Today we are very focused on the supply chain and the warehousing sector. But you can easily imagine that if you can have, an ability to automate the observation of tasks and events, whether it's in a warehouse setting or an industrial setting or a retail setting or any kind of commercial setting, this could end up being an enormous enabler for the Industry 4.0 transformation, which is the automation of industrial applications, whether it's upstream in the manufacturing sector from where we sit in supply chain, or whether it's in the retailing sector, which is downstream of where we sit. This could be transformational as a technology. Now, we obviously hope that we are the ones to leverage it and be successful with it. That's what we would like to see. But regardless of demand, this is one of the new frontiers in industrial automation. Computer vision, machine learning, decision-making through automated computer vision is without a doubt one of the main pillars of where industrial automation is going to go. You're seeing it in robotics, you're seeing it in security, you're seeing it in the kinds of work we do. There are so many applications that can be fueled by an underlying enabling technology like this. And we would obviously like to be at the crossroads of that, but time will tell.
Yes, it always does. So, KG, question for you. We also want to have a bit of fun. So if I want to give you the keys to the Matt Brown Show time machine, and I'd love for you to go back to like day one of when you were like, hey, robotics, no, we're going to pivot to warehousing and so forth, or drones pivoting, whatever. So in those initial days, what advice would you give yourself if you could go back in time to day one about building this business?
I think we took more time. It was a logical progression, but I cannot help but think that it took a long time to get to where we are. I think we're in the right place for sure. If I had a very, very strong domain expert with me in the very early days, we probably could have reached this point sooner. Maybe that's the one thing, if I could redo, I would. We learned. I'm still extremely proud of this team and how quickly they learn from the marketplace. Oftentimes, your customers don't even know what they want, except they know they're very good at describing the problems. And it's up to us to imagine and invent solutions for them and innovate on it. But having said that, a domain expert that knew these problems and had a hold on technology would have probably been useful earlier on to allow us to make some of these decisions maybe even earlier and get to market even faster.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that I've entered a number of, I've founded 14 startups over the last 25 years, most of the time going into industries I knew nothing about. And equally, what I'm hearing is it's not a too dissimilar principle from your experience going into, warehousing and so forth and working with computer vision and things like this. Do you feel, KG, that going into an industry without all the information that a typical incumbent would have is an advantage or a disadvantage?
For sure, there are advantages. We had sometimes I would say the blessing of ignorance, right? And the arrogance of ignorance, if you will, that we felt we could solve these problems when we've heard many customers tell us that some of these problems are intractable and they're not solvable because sometimes all they can think of are the many, many ways it can fail. And we looked at it very differently. We were able to piece together patterns based on the feedback they were telling us. We were able to be bold enough, arrogant enough, ignorant enough, whatever you want to call it, to attempt to come up with solutions. We did come up with solutions. We have come up with solutions. Solutions are live in facilities. And our customers now are telling us some of our customers have used the word, this is magic, this. So it's incredibly gratifying to hear that kind of feedback from, again, top tier customers. These are not, mom and pop warehouse operators. These are, global leaders that tell us that they're supercharged and super excited about the kind of technology that we're bringing to the table. And some of it is because we knew nothing about the industry and we sort of maybe dared to try something different, bring a new approach to solving these problems. But at the same time, a healthy mix of domain expertise potentially could have helped us as well.
Mm-hmm. Great points. KG, let's wrap this up. Why do you do what you do? Like, what gets you out of bed in the morning?
When I started this company, I told myself that I didn't really need to do this, but if I was going to do anything like this, I was going to do it because I wanted to work with great technology. I wanted to go try and make a difference in some kind of a marketplace, in some kind of industry. And I wanted to work with great people and just great people who would push my boundaries on intellectual stimulation, who would be fun to work with, whom I wouldn't think twice about going out and having a beer with. And I just I feel like I'm living all of those dreams. It's just been an incredible ride. I'm enjoying every minute of it. And that's why I do what I do.
Amazing, KG. Well, you're definitely a fun guy to chat to. I feel like there's lots of things I had to scoop over or just cross the surface of. But it's a very, very, very exciting startup that you guys have built here. And yeah, very excited to see where you guys are going to go in the future and ultimately the kind of difference that you're going to make in the future. So congratulations on all your success. And it's been a real privilege having you here.
Likewise, Matt, thank you. It's been great getting to know you and getting to talk to you here. And thanks for having us on the show. And we look forward to staying in touch.
Anytime. Cheers, everybody.
Take care.